coming down and attacking.
He's always bathing.
Suburban
Like, I don't get
Star
that.
Wars. And Steven Spielberg.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Let's take a look at this cool little behind the scenes clip of the Skeleton Crew. Now, I'm not sure if you guys like the Skeleton Crew or not. I thought it was actually pretty great. I think it suffers a lot from the backlash of the Acolyte because, let's just be honest, the Acolyte was not good to say the least, and I think it affected the Skeleton Crew quite a bit. The same way I think The Last Jedi affected Solo. But the Skeleton Crew wound up actually being pretty good. Fun adventure with kids, adults, and it was a show for everybody with a positive message. And I love the backstory of Jod and Wood. But let's take a look at this behind the scenes clip titled Behind the Design, Skeleton Crew. Watch Skeleton Crew, The Phantom Menace, and The Last Jedi on Disney+. That's really interesting. Alright, whatever, let's just get into the clip.
My first introduction to Skeleton Crew was described as Goonies in space. There was a desire to do a more kid-friendly version.
John Knoll's been around
Star
for such a long
Wars
time in
that
Star
invoked
Wars.
The sense of wonder and magic
Such a long
of
time.
Spielberg movies from the 1980s.
I remember reading the original scripts. Each episode brought a smile to my face because each
Doug
one
Chiang
had the adventure. It's sort of the calling of.
You know, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm really surprised that Doug Chiang and John Knoll have survived because they've been around since like Phantom Menace era Star Wars, and the fact that they're still around, I don't know what it is they're doing right to have stayed on. Maybe they've made concessions or maybe they just are beloved, but especially Doug Chiang and John Knowles, you know, they're both pillars rather, of the Phantom Menace in George Lucas's time when he was making the prequels. So very cool to still see them around.
Something new that was really fascinating. The audience gets to experience it from the point of view of the kids. They're discovering this new Star Wars world through their lens.
If you found a real Jedi temple, shouldn't we tell the supervisor?
This could be a real adventure, no more pretend.
And I have to say, is one of our biggest challenges because the idea is that it's a world that's hidden inside a gas giant. And so the people that are living on the planet actually haven't experienced sort of the bigger world of Star Wars.
Wow.
There was definitely a lot of
Actually, at first it was a little jarring seeing how Earth-like it was, but as the show unfolded and you see that it's a paradise hidden, it kind of makes sense.
talk about depicting suburbia in Star Wars and how to make it not feel too earthbound, try and still retain a Star Wars aesthetic to it and some exoticness. The droids, the styles of the houses, the shape of the architecture, I think, had just enough Star Wars quality to it.
AT-AT was a really unique challenge.
Oh, I just saw the
it's
dog.
A place that feels very familiar to my childhood.
he's been around
but
for a
it's
long time
also
too,
Star Wars.
David
What
Collins.
does the traffic on AT-AT sound like? What do the school bells sound like? Before you put it in, it just sounds kind of like the set. Once you put in those details, it feels like a real place.
They're not wrong. The sound, imagery, but especially sound. Sound is what sets Star Wars apart. From the score to the ambient sounds, it really makes a big difference.
Classic elements, boarding tubes and kind of 17th century looking flintlock weapons incorporated into this.
There were so many wonderful new places in Skeleton Crew. I mean, one of my favorites is obviously Port Borgo because it is such a different take on sort of the convention of a pirate port. You know, we really made it so that it was visually very rich. It's very colorful, the details are there, it's textured. All the characters, all the pirates, all the aliens kind of bring the spectacle of the promise of what Star Wars could.
I would have liked to have seen like one of those behind the scenes featurettes they did for The Mandalorian. Not like a whole season, but at least like a half an hour. I think a lot went into this, especially with the costume designs.
The life.
Port Borgo is so busy from a sound point of view. The kitchen sounds like the kitchen, the animal area is filled with little creatures, and of course all the pirates getting in a fight, or me getting on a mic and offering the sound of me pretending to throw up all over the floor. That was so much fun to record.
Ridge Mountains? They ruined
Can you imagine just recording yourself making vomit sounds?
it.
Enigma was
For
really
work?
fun in the sense that we had to create sort of our luxury 5-star hotel in Star Wars. And the idea was to create something that was almost like Las Vegas inspired. And what was really fun was that gave us the opportunity to create sort of a different aesthetic for Star Wars, leaning into sleek and modern and elegant. In some ways, taking inspiration from Naboo, getting those elegant shapes.
Let's see if
And
they
so we're
mention
really kind of blending
Canto
a whole
Bight.
bunch of different motifs. We're
Because I mean, Canto Bight is the sleek casino town.
blending casino, we're blending Canto Bight, we're blending prequel era designs, blending luxury spaceships.
Just a genius,
Lanupa
guys.
was a lot of fun. Everyone at Skywalker is so talented. We put in like Slurpee bubble pops for every single little bubble pop next to that hut.
Okay, one thing I really liked about this was the fact that they have Munes in this shot here. All of Darth Plagueis' race, for those of you who aren't aware, that he is called a Mune, and these Mune are bathing here. Now, interesting fact, the Darth Plagueis character and the race, the Mune, are known as the Banking Clan, so they're super rich. This place is supposed to be a spa retreat for the uber wealthy, and it makes sense. And it's very lore accurate that you would see Mune bathing here.
Bubble pops for every single.
Very peaceful, sort of mundane world on top. But then when you go down deep underneath, there's the vault. Jad opens up the vault and he sees all these credits and it piles.
I think this was such a cool idea that there's actually a mint in this planet. And Jad Nawood's fate and how he's just chasing after this money, right? All of us chase after money, unless you have the money already. And then what are you chasing in life? But it was very cool to see this in Star Wars. I think this show was, you know, original in ways that it needed to be original, and original in ways that Star Wars needed to be original. I thought it was a great show.
Up. And so we really wanted to play into that convention of, you know, pirates and coins and treasure.
And I like, I know this is behind the scenes things, but I love the imagery here. Jad Nawood represents, I feel like, the common person who maybe just didn't have enough growing up, or didn't have enough growing up. And they're just kind of in a place where they're just driven by maybe this unattainable wealth, this unattainable status. Like, they're so wounded already. And when he obtains the money, you would think he'd be like super grateful, but it kind of drives him a little bit more. He gets a little bit more wonky. And this scene here is very telling because he's just like going crazy over the money. Like, this scene over here was very, very striking to me. Even his face over here. Like, I mean, he's dipping his head in the money. And I think that's just a reflection on how maybe regular people like us would behave if we had this kind of money presented to us to change our lives. Didn't mean to get so deep. Behind the scenes.
Pirates and coins and treasures. And so when the kids interacted with it at the very end, it's fun because they're literally in a pile of money. The supervisor's tower had to be really iconic. We want to be able to identify it because it was a motif that we wanted to see on the horizon at all times when we were first introduced to Adan. But then at the very top, there had to be a room that was going to house the supervisor. The supervisor itself
didn't care for the supervisor being
was this giant droid. And we thought, okay, well, how do we do that? How do we communicate that visually? And so we thought, okay, well, let's create this giant room with these giant windows, but then at the center of it, we'll have a giant R2 head. Not literally, but that was the idea. The scale of it makes you wonder, okay,
it's very much reminiscent.
Supervisor being.
Very much reminiscent of Hal from 2000: A Space Odyssey.
My outside galaxy is so dangerously unstable.
And then the pirate ship comes down. And that's one of my favorite sequences because
a lot of people like this
gigantic spaceship coming down and attacking.
He's always bathing.
Suburban
like, I don't get
Star
that.
Wars. And Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters and E.T. were sort of touchstone points for us. And so here we actually have something like that, but in a Star Wars convention, meaning that you have a suburban Star Wars environment, but then you have this giant alien spaceship coming down. And it's a big finale fight, which is visually so rich and exotic and fun. And so I'm really excited now that the audience can actually experience the whole season in its entirety.
Very cool. I'm very much enjoy the Skeleton Crew, and I think it's something worth watching. I think you guys should all check it out. I thought it was a fantastic show. But yeah, my thoughts, man. I thought it was a great show, and I love the little behind-the-scenes look. So check it out. Let me know if you're interested in seeing more behind-the-scenes content in general here at Star Wars Infinite. Stay safe. Until next time, may the Force be with you always. See you later, guys.